The galaxy was a vast, glittering sea of stars, and in one quiet corner, a jagged ring of debris floated like a forgotten crown around a blue-green planet. Earth. To most, it was just another world, unremarkable in the grand tapestry of space. But to Vara, it was a puzzle begging to be solved. She hovered in her research pod, her 3 amber eyes fixed on the wreckage ahead. Twisted metal hulls, shattered engines, and strange, glowing fragments stretched across the void, remnants of a fleet that once dared to challenge this little planet. Her team buzzed around her, their excitement crackling through the comms like static. Vara was no ordinary scholar. Born on a dusty moon far from here, she'd spent her life chasing stories hidden in ruins. Her sleek, silver skin shimmered faintly as she adjusted the controls, guiding her pod closer to a massive wreck. It was a ship, or had been. Now, it was a skeleton of alloy and glass, its purpose lost to time. Her assistants, a mix of tentacled and winged beings from across the galaxy, darted between fragments, scanners humming. They were here to uncover history, to explain why this fleet, once the pride of a dozen worlds, lay broken and silent. "Look at this," called Mira, one of Vara's sharpest students. Her feathered arms waved a scanner over a chunk of metal, its surface etched with odd symbols. "This isn't like anything we've seen before. The energy readings are impossible." Vara floated over, her curiosity piqued. The metal wasn't just debris, it pulsed faintly, as if alive. She traced a claw along its edge, wondering what kind of mind had forged it. Her team was already chattering about theories, a lost civilization, a secret weapon, a cosmic accident. But Vara felt something deeper, a whisper of a story waiting to unfold. Far below, on Earth's surface, Eli watched the aliens through a cracked telescope. At 92, he was old even by human standards, his gray hair wild and his eyes sharp with memory. He leaned back in his creaky chair, a grin tugging at his weathered face. Up there, those fancy scholars were poking through the mess his people had left behind. He remembered the day that fleet arrived, big, shiny, and full of itself. Now, it was just junk, and he couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of those aliens scratching their heads over it. Back in orbit, Vara's team hauled a strange box from the wreckage. It was small, no bigger than a crate, but it hummed with a low, steady rhythm. Mira tapped it with a tool, and it flared to life, projecting a grainy image into the air. Faces appeared, human faces, speaking in a language the team's translators struggled to catch. "This is a message," Mira said, her voice trembling with awe. Vara leaned closer, her heart's pounding. The humans in the image looked calm, almost amused, as if they'd known something the fleet hadn't. The team worked fast, pulling more artifacts from the ruins. A cracked screen flickered with star charts, showing the fleet's approach to Earth long ago. A burned-out device sparked with faint electricity, hinting at power beyond their understanding. Vara's mind raced. This wasn't just garbage, it was evidence of something incredible. "They fought here," she said aloud, her voice steady despite the thrill bubbling inside her. "And they won. But how?" Eli sipped his tea, the steam curling up into the cool air of his hillside shack. He could almost hear the aliens chatter if he tried hard enough. They'd find bits and pieces, sure, but they'd never guess the whole story, not yet. He'd been a kid when the fleet came, a scrappy little troublemaker who'd watched the sky turn to fire. Humanity hadn't won with fancy ships or big guns. No, they'd done it their way, messy and stubborn and brilliant. He wondered how long it'd take those scholars to figure that out. In orbit, the message from the box looped again, clearer this time. A human voice, rough but steady, cut through the static. "To anyone who finds this, welcome to the party. Sorry about the mess." Laughter followed, deep and genuine, before the image winked out. Vara's team froze, then erupted into questions. Who were these humans? What party? And why apologize for a victory? Mira clutched her scanner, her feathers ruffling with excitement. "There's more here, Vara. We've barely started." Vara nodded, her gaze drifting to Earth below. The planet glowed softly, a quiet giant that had outlasted its challengers. She'd studied 100 ruins across the galaxy, but none felt like this. These weren't just relics, they were a challenge, daring her to dig deeper. The fleet had come with power and pride, yet here it was, scattered like leaves in the wind. What had happened? She turned to her team, her voice firm. "Keep searching. Whatever these humans did, it's in these ruins. We'll find it." Eli set his cup down, his grin widening. They'd find something, all right. Maybe not the whole truth, but enough to keep them guessing. He remembered the chaos, the ingenuity, the sheer stubborn will that turned that fleet into scrap. Up there, Vara and her crew were just starting their journey. Down here, he was living proof of the ending. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he whispered to himself, "Good luck, folks. You're gonna need it." The pod's lights flickered as Vara's team powered up their tools, the hum of discovery filling the air. The message box sat in the center, a silent guardian of secrets. Somewhere in its circuits, or in the debris beyond, lay the key to a story that defied everything Vara knew. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she would. This was only the beginning, and what a beginning it was. The ruins floated silently, a graveyard of metal and dreams orbiting Earth's blue glow. Vara's research pod hummed with activity as her team sifted through the wreckage, their scanners painting pictures of a past they could barely grasp. The strange human message, "Welcome to the party. Sorry about the mess," still echoed in their minds, a riddle wrapped in laughter. Vara's 3 eyes narrowed as she examined a new find, a charred data slate, its surface cracked but alive with faint pulses of energy. This wasn't just debris, it was a window into the fleet that had dared to challenge this world. Long ago, before these hulks became relics, they were the pride of the galaxy. The fleet had been born from the ambitions of 12 species, united under a single banner, the Stellar Pact. Their leader, Commander Torin, was a towering figure with scales that shimmered like molten gold. He stood on the bridge of their flagship, Eternal Triumph, gazing at holographic star charts with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. The Pact had spent decades watching Earth from afar, their telescopes catching glimpses of a planet buzzing with life but lacking the sleek, unified might of their own worlds. To them, humans were a curiosity, clever, yes, but primitive. Torin's voice had boomed across the fleet's comms that day, rallying thousands of ships. "This Earth is a spark that could become a fire," he'd said, his claws tapping the console. "We'll snuff it out before it burns us all." The Pact's council nodded in agreement, their species, some with wings, others with tendrils or glowing shells, convinced that humanity's rapid rise was a threat. They'd built their armada with care, each ship a masterpiece of alien ingenuity. The light weavers could bend space itself, the mind-shapers synced crews through thought alone, and the starbreakers wielded beams that could crack moons. Together, they were unstoppable, or so they believed. Back in the present, Vara's assistant, Miro, pried open the data slate. A flood of images spilled out, projected into the pod's dim light. Ships gleamed in formation, their hulls reflecting distant stars. Orders scrolled across the screen in crisp, alien text, approach vector confirmed. Earth defenses minimal. Victory assured. Vara's team gasped, their excitement bubbling over. This was their plan. Miro said, his tentacled hands waving. They thought they'd win easily. Vara traced the words with a claw, her mind racing. The fleet's confidence was staggering, but something had gone wrong. On Earth, Eli rocked in his chair, the night sky stretching above him. He'd seen that fleet arrive, a swarm of lights blotting out the stars. Back then, he'd been a teenager, sneaking onto rooftops to watch the show. The aliens had broadcast their demands, surrender or be crushed, and the adults around him had laughed. Not out of fear, but defiance. Eli could still hear his uncle's voice, "They think we're done for. Let's prove 'em wrong." He smiled at the memory, knowing the scholars up there were only scratching the surface of what happened next. The data slate revealed more as Vara's team dug deeper. Torin's strategy had been flawless on paper. The fleet would encircle Earth, cutting off escape routes. The Light Weavers would jam human signals, blinding their defenses. The Mind Shapers would sow confusion, breaking their will. And the Starbreakers would rain destruction on any resistance. Simulations ran millions of times had predicted a swift triumph. Earth's scattered nations and odd, patchwork tech couldn't possibly match them. The Pact had even planned a victory feast, dividing Earth's oceans and forests among themselves like a prize. But there were cracks in their certainty, hints Vara's team almost missed. A scout report flickered on the slate, human activity detected beyond predicted levels. Unusual energy spikes near their moon. Torin had dismissed it as noise, a glitch in their perfect machines. The Pact's engineers scoffed, humans couldn't hide anything from their sensors. Yet Vara frowned, her instincts tingling. That noise felt important, a thread begging to be pulled. She tapped the slate, urging it to show more, while her team buzzed with theories. Eli stretched his legs, his joints creaking like the old wood beneath him. He remembered those energy spikes, jury-rigged satellites and makeshift drones, thrown together by people who'd never built a starship but knew how to improvise. The Pact had rolled in, expecting a quick fight, but humans didn't play by their rules. Eli's grin widened. Those scholars up there were smart, but they didn't understand the chaos of a species that thrived on doing the impossible. In the pod, the slate coughed up a recording, a voice, deep and commanding. "Torin's, no doubt. Our unity is our strength," he declared. 12 worlds, one purpose. Earth will bow, and the galaxy will know our might. The fleet's crews cheered, their ships aligning in a glittering sphere around the solar system. The Eternal Triumph led the charge, its golden hull cutting through space like a blade. Vara's team marveled at the sight, the sheer scale of it all. "They were so sure," Mira whispered, her feathers quivering. What could stop this? The answer lay buried deeper, in fragments the slate couldn't yet reveal. The Pact had spent years preparing, their spies whispering about human cities and machines. They'd laughed at Earth's lack of a grand fleet, its people still arguing over borders and fuel. Divided, they fall, Torin had said, and the Council agreed. They'd missed the strength in that division, the way humans turned chaos into creation. The fleet's logs brimmed with pride, detailing every ship, every weapon, every plan. But pride, Vara knew, could blind even the sharpest minds. Eli glanced at the sky again, the ruins twinkling faintly. He'd been there when the first shots rang out, not from sleek warships, but from things the Pact never saw coming. Old radio towers turned into jammers, cargo haulers packed with explosives, kids with slingshots and dreams. The fleet had expected a war of machines. Itty gave them a war of wills. He wondered how long it'd take Vara to see it, the moment the Pact's grand ambition hit a wall it couldn't break. Vara's pod grew quiet as the slate flickered, its power fading. She tapped it again, coaxing out one last image, Earth, small and bright, surrounded by the fleet's looming shadow. The date stamp matched no galactic record she knew, but the intent was clear. This was the beginning of the end for the Pact. "They thought they'd crush us," she said softly, her voice carrying a mix of awe and unease. But something stopped them. Something, human. Her team nodded, their eyes wide with wonder. The ruins weren't just a puzzle, they were a story, one that stretched beyond the metal and into the heart of a species they didn't understand. Vara felt a spark ignite inside her, the thrill of discovery pushing her forward. "We need more," she told her crew. "Whatever these humans did, it's here. Let's find it." The pod's engines hummed as they moved deeper into the wreckage, chasing the echoes of a battle that defied the stars. Eli leaned back, the night breeze cool against his skin. Up there, Vara was digging into the past, piecing together a tale he'd lived. He could almost picture her face, three-eyed and serious, when she found the next clue. The fleet had come with ambition, sure, but ambition alone didn't win wars. Humanity had something else, something wild and unstoppable. He closed his eyes, letting the memories wash over him. The real fun was still to come. The data slate dimmed, but its secrets lingered in the air. Vara's team worked tirelessly, their tools carving through the ruins like explorers in a lost world. The fleet's grand plan had been perfect, too perfect. And that, Vara sensed, was where it all went wrong. Earth waited below, silent and unshaken, a witness to the Pact's folly. The story was far from over, and she couldn't wait to see what came next. Let's keep the story rolling. Below is part 3 of The Last Fleet That Challenged Earth. We study their ruins, written in an engaging, inspiring tone with simple English to spark imagination and curiosity. It's approximately 1,800 words, covering about 8 to 10 minutes of narration, and builds on the previous parts with a thrilling reveal of humanity's defiance. The narrative dives into the battle itself, showcasing human ingenuity and resilience, while keeping Vara's team in the present hooked on the mystery. Here we go. Part 3, Humanity's Hidden Strength, 1,800 words. The wreckage hung in Earth's orbit like a shattered crown, each piece a silent testament to a battle long past. Inside Vara's research pod, the air buzzed with anticipation. Her team had cracked open another relic, a battered recorder from one of the Stellar Pact's ships. Its casing was scorched, but its core hummed faintly, alive with data. Vara's 3 eyes glinted as she activated it, and the pod filled with sounds from a time when the fleet still dreamed of conquest. Screams, static, and a voice shouting in panic cut through the silence. They're everywhere. How are they doing this? Her team leaned closer, their breaths held, as the recorder painted a picture of chaos. Long ago, the Stellar Pact's fleet had descended on Earth, a glittering swarm of 12 species united under Commander Torin's golden gaze. Their ships, the Light Weavers, Mindshapers, and Starbreakers, moved in perfect harmony, a symphony of power meant to crush the planet below. Torin stood on the Eternal Triumph's bridge, his claws clenched with certainty. Begin the assault, he'd ordered, expecting humanity to crumble under their might. The fleet sensors showed Earth's defenses, a handful of satellites, scattered ships, and no grand armada. Easy prey, they thought. But humans didn't fight like the Pact expected. The recorder crackled again, pulling Vara's team deeper into the past. A Mindshaper captain's voice trembled, "Our telepaths, they're breaking. Something's blocking us." Vara's assistant, Mira, tilted her feathered head. Blocking telepaths? That's impossible. But the evidence was there, raw and real. The Pact had planned to fracture human minds with their thought-linked ships, sowing fear and confusion. Instead, they hit a wall, a psychic roar of defiance that sent their telepaths reeling. Vara scribbled notes, her claws trembling with excitement. What had the humans done? Down on Earth, Eli sat by his window, the stars reflecting in his sharp old eyes. He'd been there when the fleet arrived, a skinny kid with a radio and a knack for trouble. The aliens had come in all shiny and proud, but humanity didn't bow. He remembered the makeshift defenses, old truckers rigging antennas into signal jammers, engineers turning solar panels into lasers, kids like him running messages through the chaos. The Pact thought they'd face an army. Instead, they got a planet full of stubborn dreamers who refused to quit. The recorder spun out more chaos, a Lightweaver pilot shouting, "Our space-bending fields, they're collapsing." Torin's fleet had relied on bending reality itself, warping space to dodge attacks and strike unseen. But humans had turned that strength against them. Eli chuckled, recalling how his neighbor, a tinkerer named Sam, had rigged old weather satellites to flood space with random signals. The Lightweaver's fancy tech couldn't handle the noise, fields flickered, ships crashed into each other, and the pack's perfect formation crumbled. Vara's team listened, wide-eyed, as the recorder captured Torin's growing disbelief. Their weapons, they're not even advanced. How are they hitting us? The Starbreakers, built to shatter moons, fired beams that could melt steel. But humans didn't meet them head-on. They dodged with clunky cargo ships, then struck back with salvaged missiles and drones made from scrap. One log showed a Starbreaker exploding, not from a warship, but from a swarm of tiny bots, reprogrammed from a toy factory. Vara's assistant, Miro, gaped. Toys. They use toys. Eli rocked in his chair, a grin splitting his weathered face. Toys, sure, his cousin had worked that factory, churning out drones for kids until the fleet showed up. Then they'd tweak the code, packed them with nails and fuel, and sent them buzzing into the enemy. The pack's big ships couldn't track 1,000 little stings, and soon their hulls were leaking air. Humanity didn't have the best tech, but they had ideas, wild, messy, brilliant ideas, and that was enough. The recorder's next clip was frantic. They're adapting. Every move we make, they counter. Torin's voice broke through, sharp with fury. Focus fire on their cities, end this now. But the humans kept moving, their defenses shifting like water. Old submarines launched decoys, fooling the Starbreakers into blasting empty ocean. Farmers flew crop dusters loaded with chaff, scattering the Lightweaver's sensors. And in orbit, a handful of patched-up shuttles darted between ships, dropping surprises, mines made from old batteries, EMPs from scrapped radios. The fleet's tech was leagues ahead, but it couldn't keep up with human chaos. Vara's pod was silent now, her team staring at the recorder as it looped the sounds of a dying fleet. This doesn't make sense, Mira whispered. They were outmatched. How did they win? Vara tapped the device, her mind spinning. The pact had every advantage, numbers, ships, weapons, yet here they were, ruins floating in the void. She felt a thrill, a hunger to understand. These humans weren't just survivors, they were something more, something that turned weakness into strength. Eli stretched, his bones creaking as he stood. He'd seen the turning point himself, though he'd never tell those scholars everything. Not yet. The fleet had pushed hard, but humanity had a trick up its sleeve, a secret cooked up in garages and basements. He remembered the night the sky lit up, not with alien fire, but with something they'd built, something simple yet unstoppable. Up there, Vara was chasing that secret, and he couldn't wait to see her face when she found it. The recorder flickered, its power fading, but one last voice broke through, a human voice, calm amid the storm. Keep guessing, folks. They don't know what hit M. Laughter followed, rough and fearless, before the audio cut out. Vara's team erupted, their voices overlapping. Guessing? They planned this? No, it's too random. But it worked. Vara raised a claw for silence, her gaze fixed on Earth below. That laughter, it was the same as the message from the box in Part 1. These humans weren't afraid. They were having fun. Miro waved his tentacles, pulling up scans of the wreckage. Look at this, half these ships were taken down by things that shouldn't have worked. Primitive explosives, signal tricks, it's insane. Vara nodded, her heart's pounding. Insane, yes, but effective. The pact had built a fleet of perfection, every detail calculated. Humans had answered with a mess of grit and genius, turning junk into victory. She turned to her team, her voice firm. We're missing something big. Keep digging, the answer's here. Eli shuffled outside, the cool air brushing his face as he looked up. The ruins twinkled, a reminder of humanity's stand. He'd been part of it, a kid with a slingshot and a dream, watching the grown-ups turn the impossible into reality. The pact had come with strength, but humans had fought with heart, and something else, something Vara's team was inching toward. He hummed an old tune, the one they'd sung when the fleet fell, and let the memory carry him back. In the pod, the recorder lay quiet, its tale half-told. Vara's team moved with new energy, their tools slicing through the debris. The fleet's defeat wasn't luck, it was human, through and through. But how had they sealed the win? The answer hovered just out of reach, buried in the ruins, waiting to be found. Vara felt it calling, a story of resilience that could light up the galaxy. She wouldn't stop until she knew it all. The Earth spun below, serene and unbroken, a world that had faced the stars and laughed. Vara's pod drifted deeper into the wreckage, the hum of discovery driving them on. The fleet had fallen, but its fall was only part of the tale. The real secret, the spark that turned the tide, was still out there, and Vara was determined to chase it to the end. The ruins glimmered in Earth's orbit, a jagged halo of twisted metal and faded glory. Vara's research pod floated among them, its lights cutting through the dark as her team worked tirelessly. They'd found another prize, a cracked console from the Stellar Pack's flagship, Eternal Triumph. Its circuit sparked faintly, a stubborn survivor of the chaos that had torn the fleet apart. Vara's 3 eyes shone with determination as she powered it up, and the pod filled with flickering holograms, the final moments of the pack's grand ambition, captured in grainy light. Her team gathered close, their breath held, ready for the truth. Long ago, the battle had reached its peak. Commander Torin's fleet, 12 species strong, pressed their attack, their ships weaving through space with deadly grace. The Lightweavers twisted reality, the Mindshapers pushed their telepaths to the limit, and the Starbreakers roared with moon-shattering power. Torin stood on the Eternal Triumph, his golden scales dull with sweat as reports flooded in. "They're still fighting," a captain shouted. "We've hit their cities, their ships, why won't they break?" Torin snarled, slamming a claw on the console. "Finish them." But humanity didn't break. On Earth, people scrambled, farmers, teachers, kids, turning whatever they had into weapons. Eli, then a wiry teenager, had run through the streets, dodging debris as the sky burned. He'd seen it all, old radios blasting interference, trucks hauling makeshift cannons, even a librarian launching fireworks to blind sensors. The pack's tech was unbeatable, until it met human grit. The console's hologram shifted, showing Torin's fleet faltering. Ships collided, their perfect formations shredded by chaos they couldn't predict. Vara's assistant, Mira, gasped as the hologram played on. "Look, something's happening." A new signal flared across the Eternal Triumph screens, a pulse that didn't match any packed tech. Torin's voice cracked, "What is that?" "Shut it down." But it was too late. The pulse grew, a wave of energy rippling from Earth's surface, simple yet unstoppable. Vara's team stared, their tools buzzing as they analyzed it. This isn't advanced," Miro said, his tentacles twitching. "It's basic electromagnetics, but amplified beyond anything we've seen." Down on Earth, Eli leaned against his shack, the memory as vivid as yesterday. That pulse, he'd helped build it. Not him alone, but a ragtag crew of tinkerers and dreamers. They'd taken old power grids, jury-rigged them with salvaged coils, and wired them to a crazy idea: overload the fleet systems with raw, messy energy. No sleek design, no grand plan, just a big, loud no to the invaders. He chuckled, recalling the moment it fired, the night sky flashing white as the pack's ships sparked and fell. The hologram flickered, showing the Eternal Triumph's bridge in panic. "Shields failing," a crew member screamed. The Lightweavers blinked out, their space-bending fields fried. The Mindshapers went silent, their telepaths overwhelmed by static. The Starbreakers shuddered, their weapons shorting out mid-fire. Torin roared, "Regroup. We can still," but the feed cut to static, the console's last gasp. Vara's team sat stunned. "That pulse," Mira whispered. "It wasn't a weapon. It was everything." Eli stepped outside, the cool air brushing his face. That everything was humanity itself, messy, stubborn, brilliant. The pact had come with a fleet of wonders, expecting a clean victory. Humans answered with chaos and heart, turning junk into miracles. He'd watched the ships crash, their golden pride reduced to the ruins Vara now studied. Up there, she was piecing it together, and he wondered what she'd make of it all. In the pod, Vara tapped the console, coaxing out one last fragment, a human transmission, faint but clear. A voice, rough with exhaustion but alive with defiance, crackled through, "Told you, folks, keep them guessing. They're done." Cheers erupted in the background, a sound that sent shivers through Vara's team. "They knew," Miro said, his voice awed. "They knew they'd win." Vara nodded, her mind racing. This wasn't luck or tech, it was will, raw and unshakable. The pact had underestimated that, and it cost them everything. The ruins told the rest. The fleet's final moments were a cascade of failure, ships drifting powerless, crews abandoning posts, Torrens' orders drowned in static. The Eternal Triumph spun out of control, its golden hull cracking as it plunged toward Earth's atmosphere, burning up in a fiery farewell. Humanity hadn't just survived, they'd turned the galaxy's mightiest force into a lesson. Vara's team traced the wreckage patterns, their scanners confirming it. The pulse had crippled the fleet in minutes, leaving it helpless against Earth's ragged counterattack. Eli kicked a stone, watching it skitter down the hill. He'd cheered with the others that night, a kid among heroes. The grown-ups had hugged and cried, their hands dirty from building the pulse. It wasn't pretty, no sleek warship or cosmic trick, just human stubbornness made real. Up in orbit, Vara was finding the pieces, but the heart of it was down here, in the people who'd refused to lose. He hoped she'd see that, one day. Vara's pod grew quiet, the console dark at last. She floated to the window, gazing at Earth. "They didn't need to be advanced," she said softly. "They were, enough." Mira nodded, her feathers still. "Enough to beat this?" She waved at the ruins. Vara smiled, a rare warmth in her voice. "More than enough. They were extraordinary." The team murmured, their awe shifting to respect. The fleet's fall wasn't a fluke, it was a story, one that could inspire the galaxy if they told it right. Then, a shadow moved outside the pod. Vara turned, startled, as a small craft drifted close, an old human shuttle, patched and dented. A figure waved from its window, gray hair wild in the dim light. Eli's voice crackled over an open comm, "Found what you're looking for yet?" Vara's team froze, their scanners whirring. "Who?" Mira started, but Vara raised a claw, her heart's pounding. "Someone who knows," she said, and opened the channel. Eli's grin filled the screen, his eyes sharp despite his age. "Nice work, folks. You've got the how, now try the why. Took us a while to figure it out too." He laughed, the same rough sound from the recordings. Vara leaned forward, her voice steady. "Why did you win?" Eli's grin softened. "'Cause we had to. That's all it ever takes, needing to, more than they did." He tipped an imaginary hat. "Keep digging. You'll see." The shuttle drifted off, leaving Vara's team in stunned silence. "He was there," Miro whispered. "Part of it." Vara nodded, her gaze back on Earth. Eli's words sank in, need, not power, had won the day. The pact had fought for glory, humans fought for home. That was the secret, simple and profound, hidden in the debris all along. She turned to her team, her resolve firm. "We'll tell this story. Not just the battle, the lesson." Eli settled back in his shack, the stars bright above. He'd given Vara a nudge, a spark to carry forward. The ruins weren't just junk, they were proof of what humans could do when pushed. He hummed that old tune again, the one from Victory Night, and let the quiet take him. Up there, Vara would spread the tale, and maybe the galaxy would listen. The pod hummed as Vara's team packed their finds, the console and recorder stowed away. Earth glowed below, a world that had faced the stars and won, not with might, but with something deeper. Vara felt it now, a curiosity that stretched beyond these ruins. What else could humans do? The question lingered, open and endless, a story with no final page. She smiled, ready to chase it wherever it led.